Christmas countdown. So what have you put on your Christmas list, Billy? Asked Kirsty, perching on the end of a hospital bed. A little boy in a dinosaur pajamas clapped his hand with excitement. A Tyrannosaurus Rex, he announced. A really big one. Rachel's eyes twinkled. Have you been good this year? Billy nodded proudly. It was Christmas Eve, and Rachel Brownie's troop had come to visit the patients at Tippington Children's Hospital. The corridors looked cozy and bright, covered from floor to ceiling in paper decorations and twinkling lights. The doctors wandered up and down in Santa's hat, checking charts and handing out medicine. Garlands of tinsel sparkled around the nurses' stations, and festive tunes echoed down the wards. I can't wait to see the children's faces when they see what we brought, Rachel said. Rachel pulled out a little pencil and notebook from her uniform packet, and I wrote down Billy's name. The Brownies troop had used money raised at the winter fair to buy toys for the boys and girls who were too sick to go home for the holidays. Now the Brownies needed to make sure that each patient got something they would enjoy. The hospital playroom was stacked with trains, cars, teddy bears, and tea sets. Each toy had been carefully wrapped in bright paper and tied with curly ribbon. Do you remember the plastic dinosaur with the green tail? Asked Kirsty. That would be a perfect present for Billy. Rachel crossed the toy dino off her list and then slipped the notebook back into her pocket. Kirsty wandered over to say hello to a small girl whose leg was in a plaster cast. I'm Kirsty. What's your name? I'm Emily, replied the girl in a sad voice. I broke my leg ice skating. Kirsty gave Emily's hand a friendly squeeze. You poor thing, she said. Maybe Santa will bring you something extra special this year. The little girl's patient eyes suddenly glistened with tears. How is he going to know where to deliver the presents? I didn't think I'd be here on Christmas morning. Santa never gets things wrong, replied Rachel. He's got a special list. I hope so, replied Emily, sighed, sinking back in her pillow. I don't know what I'd do if Santa forgot about me. Rachel tried to look cheerful, but inside her heart gave a little flutter. She wondered what would happen if they didn't find Angelica's enchanted name scroll before bedtime. Santa would be leaving his workshop at the North Pole soon, and although Angelica had 2 of her magic objects back, Jack Frost was still hiding the precious scroll. The scroll contained the names of all the children who had been good. If Angelica didn't give the scroll to Santa, he wouldn't know where to deliver the presents. What did you wish for? Asked Kirsty, taking a quick peek around the hospital window. The sky was already dark. Snowflakes silently fell over the town. Emily's eyes shone hopefully. I'd love a fairy doll, she gushed. Just then, a nurse in navy slacks wheeled a food cart around. On her shirt, a Christmas tree branch flashed merrily next to a name badge that read, Sally. Dinner time, called Nurse Sally. Who would like a sandwich and a slice of chocolate Yule log? While the brownie leader and the rest of the troop helped pass around the trays of food, Kirsty led Rachel a little way up the corridor. We can't let Emily and the others down, she whispered. We have to find the enchanted name scroll. It's almost time for Santa to load up on his sleigh. I'd hoped it would have turned up by now. I don't even know where to start looking. Just then, 3 hospital aides in coats tumbled out of a side room. They marched towards Rachel and Kirsty, their eyes fixed on the floor. Bash! The clumsy trio knocked right into Nurse Sally's food cart. The nurse gasped at the cart as the cart careened down the corridor. Careful, Rachel frowned, running over to help. The friends caught the food cart just in time, but the workers didn't even bother to apologize. What are you 3 doing here anyway? She demanded. Nurse Sally, putting her hands on her hips. I didn't call for any help. The strange workers muttered something under their breath. Then the tallest one broke into an awkward run, pushing Rachel as he bolted out the door. Rachel shivered. That was Jack Frost. He's here. A flicker of fairy magic. Are you sure it was Jack Frost? Whispered Kirsty. I'm positive, insisted Rachel. He was freezing cold. I bet he's brought a couple of goblins with him, too. Kirsty wheeled the cart back into the middle of the ward, as soon as Nurse Sally and the Brownies were busy again giving one of the children's dinners. The girls snuck out of the rooms. If Jack Frost was lurking in Tippington Children's Hospital, they needed to find him fast. The girls tiptoed past the nurse's station and then pushed through the ward's double doors. There he is, exclaimed Kirsty. Now that they were all out of the grown-up sights, Jack Frost and his goblins didn't even bother to try to disguise themselves. Their big, clumpy feet clattered down the corridor, making a terrible noise. The threesome bumped and jostled all the way, eyeing each other with grumpy faces. Come on, yelled Jack Frost, tugging the nearest goblin by the shirt. Santa won't wait much longer. Jack Frost dug a hand into his coat pocket and pulled out a golden roll of parchment tied with red velvet ribbon. Kirsty and Rachel both gasped in surprise. It had to be Angelica's enchanted name scroll. Before the girls could get any closer, the doctor strolled down the corridor. Quick as a flash, Jack Frost ducked into an empty side room. Where'd he go? Wondered one of the goblins, wrinkling his long nose. The other goblin scratched his head. Don't ask me. The doctor stared at the strange pair. Just when it seemed like he was going to say something, an icy hand reached out of the side room and dragged the goblins inside. The door slammed shut behind them. The doctor shrugged, then smiled at Kirsty and Rachel as soon as he passed. The girls rushed to the closet door and peered through the window into it. Inside, they could see Jack Frost and his goblins huddled in a corner. All three were talking in urgent voices, pointing and glaring at the enchanted scroll. They're definitely up to no good, Rachel frowned. We can't let them do anything to ruin Santa's list. As she spoke, the string of twinkle lights on the wall above her seemed to flare even brighter. We're going to have to go in there, said Kirsty, pushing against the door. Rachel caught her friend's arm. There was no doubt about it. The lights were blinking faster now, too. I wonder, she said in a hushed voice. Could Angelica be close by? The girls held hands. A glittering swoosh of gold burst out of the lights, sending sparkles spiraling in all directions. Angelica, the angel fairy, fluttered into a tiny trail of fairy dust, cascading behind her. Her cheeks had flushed the color of pink rosebuds. Kirsty, Rachel, she exclaimed. I didn't think I'd get here in time. The friends said a quick hello, thrilled to be together again. The scroll is in there, whispered Rachel urgently, keeping her voice as low as she could. In Jack Frost's hands, finished Kirsty. Angelica gasped. As soon as I heard Jack Frost was on his way to the human world, I decided to follow him. She announced in a brave voice. What is he doing in a children's hospital? A noisy shout rang out from the side room. This piece of paper is useless, bellowed Jack Frost, just like you goblins. Watch out, Kirsty gasped, pulling Rachel back from the door. The door swung back on its hinges with a deafening thud. Angelica darted up into the twinkle lights just as Jack Frost came thundering into view. Kirsty and Rachel pressed themselves against the wall. The two goblins ran into the corridor, and they craned their heads left and right, but the pair didn't think to look behind them. Get me a pen now, shouted Jack Frost. My name needs to be scrolled on that list in the biggest letters Santa has ever seen. The name game. As soon as Jack Frost and his goblins had crashed back down the corridor, Rachel stood up on her tiptoes. Angelica, she called gently, is it safe to come out now? The little fairy flitted out of her hiding spot. We need to get closer to Jack Frost. It sounds like he's about to do something very selfish. Rachel felt a little frightened at the thought of eavesdropping on Jack Frost. What would happen if they got caught? It's not going to be easy, Kirsty said. These long corridors don't have many hiding places when you're our size. Angelica pointed to her wand. How would you like to be fairies again, she asked. Both girls shared a delighted smile. Oh, yes, please, replied Rachel. That would make things much easier. Angelica twirled her wand in a circle, sending a cloud of fairy dust dancing in all directions. The friends watched as the sprinkles began to settle in their hair. Rachel took a deep breath. The fairy dust smelled of everything she loved about the holidays. Pine trees, gingerbread, and candy canes, all rolled into one. I can feel myself shrinking, declared Kirsty, as a glistening pair of wings magically appeared on her back. The delicate pink wings were so pale, she could almost see through them. Rachel shrugged her shoulders and felt her own wings begin to open and close gently. Isn't it wonderful, she said. The friends could have tumbled and twirled through the air all day, but they didn't waste another second. They flew straight up to Angelica's side and listened carefully to her instructions. Follow me down the corridor, she said. Try and fly as high as you can. If we stay close to the decorations, Jack Frost shouldn't notice us. Good idea, agreed Kirsty. One by one, the fairies flitted down the corridor, darting in and out of the paper chains and tinsel. It didn't take long to track down Jack Frost and his goblins. They had wandered into a ward that had been closed for Christmas break. The three stood at the end of an empty hospital bed, hunched over a mattress. Oh my, Angelica gasped. Rachel and Kirsty fluttered down and perched on the head of a bed frame just out of sight. The goblins had stretched the enchanted scroll out so that Jack Frost could write his name at the top. He tried again and again to make its mark on the magic parchment, but nothing seemed to work. I need another pen, he growled. Now. The goblin with the long nose rolled his eyes. We've given you a dozen pens, he grumbled. Felt tip, ballpoint, markers, you've tried them all. The other goblins groaned. You've been scribbling on that scroll ever since you took it from Fairyland. Can't we just go back to the ice castle? Jack Frost threw the pen on the floor. Silence, he ordered. I need to get my name on the list. Why else do you think we're in a hospital? Oh my, Angelica gasped. Rachel and Kirsty fluttered down on the perch of the head of the bed frame just out of sight. The goblin had stretched the enchanted scroll out so that Jack Frost could write his name at the top. He tried again and again. To make his mark on the magic parchment, but nothing seemed to work. I need another pen. Now, the goblin with the long nose rolled his eyes. Jack Frost wanted his name on Santa's list of the good children anyways. Easy. He's after an extra big pile of presents this year, declared Rachel. The friends watched as Jack Frost rolled up the scroll and stuck it back into his pocket. If I can't write on this old scrap, I'll find someone who can. This place is crawling with doctors and nurses. All we've got to do is trick one of them into writing my name for me. Someone sickeningly good like them should get the magic going. The goblins started to laugh. Sickening good, snorted one. Nice hospital joke. The others clutched his belly and began to hoot with laughter. Jack Frost didn't even crack a smile. Instead, he grabbed both goblins by their shirts and yanked them behind the bed. Someone's coming, he asked, ducking out of sight. There was a sound of footsteps. Oh no, gasped Kirsty. It's the doctor we saw earlier. The girls shared an alarmed look. Now they'd never get the scroll back. 3 new patients. Is anyone in here? Called the doctor, flicking on the main light. This ward should be closed. Jack Frost leapt out from behind the bed, hastily straightening his workers' uniforms. Well, just us hospital workers, he lied. We're giving this place a good clean. Got to keep it nice for the children, right? The two goblins looked at each other, shiftfully. Jack Frost shot them a fierce glare, and they started clumsily making one of the beds. Angelica and her friends flitted up out of sight. Jack Frost turned back to the doctor. I'm sure you got the memo, he insisted, pulling the enchanted scroll out of his pocket. All you have to do is sign here, and we'll have this place looking tip-top for your next group of patients. The doctor looked uneasy. Hurry up, pressed one of the goblins. We've got work to do. Angelica covered her worrisome eyes. This isn't how the enchanted scroll should be treated, she cried. I can't bear to look. Jack Frost handed the pen to the doctor. Kirsty and Rachel clutched Angelica's hands. I'll sign that form later, the doctor announced, taking the pen. You 3 needed a prescription first. Jack Frost's lips began to tremble. What's a prescription? It's a list of medication I want you to take. I've never seen anyone so off color. Before they could argue, Jack Frost and the goblins found themselves being helped into hospital beds. The doctor put a thermometer into Jack Frost's mouth and then walked around to examine the goblins. Say, he muttered. Now, you're practically green. You must be feeling really sick. Now that you mention it, I do, said the goblin with the long nose. Am I going to be okay, doctor? Asked the other goblin. Kirsty did a somersault in the air. Jack Frost's plan is backfiring, she said. Now those silly goblins really think that they're sick, added Angelica, trying not to giggle. Kirsty blinked with surprise as the doctor pulled the thermometer out of Jack Frost's mouth. There was a tinkly splitting sound. The glass tube had frozen solid. That's impossible, said the stunned doctor, rubbing his eyes. How can it give me a minus reading? Let's get you wrapped up nice and warm. Rachel stifled a laugh as the doctor piled blankets and hot water bottles into Jack Frost's bed. His spiky hair and beard began to droop, and his nose turned a funny shade of pink. "I think I'm melting," he wailed. "Stop it." Luckily, the doctor was used to difficult patients. He tucked all three in extra tight, telling them that they should be fine as long as they rested for a week or two. By the time he headed back off on his rounds, the trio really thought they were sick. "That's it then," the long-nosed goblin groaned. "Christmas is canceled." Angelica pointed down to Jack Frost in bed. She could still see the enchanted scroll sticking out from the covers. "Should we fly down and get it?" Kirsty's eyes began to twinkle. "I have an even better idea," she replied. The nice list. Kirsty took Rachel's and Angelica's hands. "If we can persuade Jack Frost to give the enchanted scroll back, his name might appear on the parchment all by itself." Angelica nodded. "That way Santa will remember to bring him presents, too." "Let's give Jack Frost the chance to do something good," agreed Rachel. The friends darted out from their hiding spot. The goblins began to howl as soon as they saw the trail of golden fairy dust shimmering above their beds. "Call the doctor back," yelled the one with the long nose. "I'm starting to see things." "Not things," said Rachel. "Not things," said Kirsty. "Fairies." Angelica hovered over Jack Frost's bed. "Please, may I have my enchanted scroll back?" she asked sweetly. "There's still enough time to make sure that the children here and all over the world get the presents that they deserve." Jack Frost stuck his tongue out. "No, what about the presents I deserve?" Rachel plucked up all her courage and then fluttered a little closer. "This is your chance to get off the naughty list," she urged. "If you give us the scroll to Angelica, your name might appear on Santa's list." Jack Frost hesitated for a moment. "It only takes one good deed to make the magic work," Angelica said. "Time is running out. It's now or never." Angelica held out both hands and waited patiently. Jack Frost growled and then pulled the scroll out from under the covers. "All right, take the silly thing." The instant the scroll left his hands, the parchment shrank back down to fairy size. "Thank you," cried Angelica, clutching the magic object to her chest. Kirsty and Rachel watched spellbound as Angelica carefully undid the red velvet ribbon and unraveled the enchanted scroll. Even Jack Frost peeked nervously over the blankets. Angelica ran her tiny fingertips down the list of names. There was thousands, each written in a beautiful fountain. Her fingers stopped halfway down the page. "Here you are," she said. "Red Frost, Jack." Jack Frost couldn't help but grin. He even pushed himself up in the bed, and he even high-fived the goblins. "It's time to go back to your ice castle," said Angelica. "But when you wake up tomorrow, there might be a few surprises waiting for you." A fountain of glittering swirls cascaded out of Angelica's wand, bathing Jack Frost and his goblins in an exquisite golden light. Jack Frost murmured something quietly. "What was that?" Jack Frost lifted his arms into the air and then summoned two goblins to stand close. "If you must know," he snapped, "I said, 'Happy holidays.'" There's a crack of lightning, and the trio was gone. "I never thought I'd hear Jack Frost talk like that," marveled Angelica, rolling up the scroll and tucking it under her arm. "What a perfect ending to our adventure together." "The adventure is not quite over yet. You need to take the enchanted scroll to the North Pole. Santa will be waiting." At that moment, the sound of children's laughter started to echo down the corridor. "And we need to help the brownies give out those presents. Let's hurry. The children need to go get to bed on time. It is Christmas Eve." With a tap of her wand, Angelica changed Kirsty and Rachel back to their normal size. "Goodbye," cried Rachel. "Happy holidays." Angelica waved her magic wand one last time. A beautiful soft doll of fairy wings appeared in Kirsty's outstretched hand. The doll had auburn hair and a frothy white dress, just like Angelica's, a special present for a little girl named Emily. The end. The next story is Carly the School Fairy. Hope you enjoyed, Olivia.